let's begin again with Kawhi. And is DeFi dead after CBDCs? Let's see.
Hi everyone. We don't have so much of a large crew, so I think we can just sit back a little, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Just some context on the topic that we chose. So, who here is like Portuguese, or you're all like Europeans? Everyone? Okay. So Latin America is kind of making a big push towards regulation and working alongside industry and government and so on. And this is not something new. It's been happening for more than a decade, and Brazil is kind of on the bleeding edge of it. It's one of the best countries in terms of financial infrastructure and technology. And right now, like last year and this year, more precisely, there are a lot of new things coming up, and a lot of like the plan that has been brewing throughout this last couple of years has been shown, and yeah. So who doesn't know what CBDC is? It's a central bank digital currency, which kind of inherits the technology that we used on mostly Ethereum-based contracts to also directly integrate with the banking system and the public government banking system as well. So yeah, I'm Khaled. So just a little introduction about me. So yeah, I don't even remember how long I've been in crypto. This is basically my whole career. If I get out of crypto, I'm nothing. So I'm leveraged like you guys, I think. So I also did many conferences before. I'm a contributor in a few big projects like Open Zeppelin, ENS, Gitcoin, and others as well. I'm an ex-MakerDAO engineer, so I know a bit of the tech side as well. And I'm currently also pushing Solana Foundation across Latin America. And yeah, also talking to a lot of banks and entities across Brazil. In Poland, this is a company I co-founded. We were established during 2020, so during the COVID, and that kind of was a nice time to also pick up doing dev work for blockchain. So we're Brazil's largest dev shop as well. We're OmniStack, so we started off on Ethereum, it's kind of our home still, but we also do a lot of other ecosystem development like Solana, Near, even Bitcoin Core, XRP. We also do infrastructure, a lot of things. Last year we also started doing ventures, so we do co-investments and this kind of stuff. And yeah, and this year we were more of like a TradFi bridger as well. We started doing tokenization of real-world assets, which is another thing that Brazil is kind of on the forefront. And yeah, we're also banking institutional friends too, even though we're all degens, we're all like Satoshi guys, but it's kind of a trend, and why would it be toxic against the people that are trying to join blockchain and use the technology as well? So yeah, just some context as well. I don't know if you noticed, but we're using Comic Sans and a very avant-garde kind of design, right? It's very simple. So I didn't really prepare some specific slides for this work because basically, like, we have Lisbon, so who wasn't out drinking last night? You know, we're staying by Rio Alto, and yeah, didn't have that much time. I'm still a bit hangover actually. We have to work, and there's also another conference happening right now, which I think our partner will hear the blog as well, so NearCon. So we're here. I didn't really prepare any slides. So let's just pick up where Pablo Picasso left off, and yeah, good artist copy, great artist still. So I stole this for us. So this comes directly from the Brazilian Central Bank by Otávio, so thank you, Otávio. If you like this presentation, thank him, not me. I'm just like passing along the what he presented before, and this was actually a big deal in Brazil when this came out because it kind of contextualized a lot of what has been happening. And it started off great, like just picking up and just saying, okay, what has Brazil been doing? And like the biggest kind of agent in all of this is PIX. Who here understands what PIC is? Like, except for Gustavo? Okay, only the Brazilian people.
Sorry.
It's okay. So basically PIX is the first big inspiration that the central bank pushed out from blockchain. So it's basically, it works very similar to a payment settlement solution. It's instantaneous. It has a unique hash. You can share it with people, but it doesn't have the aspect of being kind of like fully transparent, and like you can audit, you can prove that I sent you some transactions, but it's not public. If like she sent her, I don't necessarily have access to that data. And it's pretty important because not only from the technology side, it got people more used to using QR codes, their phone to transact money instead of credit cards and, actual money, physical money. And it works really great. So it's pretty much instantaneous, and it's the basis of getting people used to blockchain technology. And this is another thing that Otavio also mentioned in person, that I think if you know, like the countryside of Europe and the countryside of Brazil, I think it's quite similar in terms of instruction and how people are used to doing stuff, right? It's not really that tech savvy, it's not really that forward thinking, but in less than a year, Pix managed to get my grandma, our grandmas, to use QR codes and to scan QR codes and to understand instant value transfers and pretty much trust in digital technology for settlement and payment, which was pretty important. So this is already in production for a couple of years. People are used to it. This is the de facto way of transacting inside Brazil. But here what Otavio is saying, that this is pretty much like a little piece of the puzzle in what the central bank is trying to do. And the next part of it is, Pix is still part of the CBDC, but it's just the beginning. This is, okay, it's good. So some data around that. So this is actually a really nice slide. Here we have a comparison of, and by the way, people, if you like a slide, you can just take a picture and use like Google Lens or something to translate over, because it's Portuguese. I was going to translate using AI as well, but why not, right? You guys can do it. But yeah, getting back to the graph, here's a big comparison of, I think, just a mixture of the best, more modern banking systems across the world, and also the more used ones. So you can see like India, for instance, one of those. Nigeria is also very digital, believe it or not. Like they can't really rely on their actual banking system, so they use a lot of digital currencies to settle stuff. And this is Brazil. So it's pretty much like, it's a way more logarithmic curve when compared to how people are using transactions per capita. So pretty much compared to how much money they earn, how much they're actually transacting. And this was a big thing about Pix. So pretty much we had 600 million unique keys that were registered into the system. And this was this year, so a bit more than 2 years of work and rollout across the country, and we already have, this is like almost the whole population, right? It's like more than half, so it's pretty intense. And this is the volume, I think in millions of highs as well, so almost 1 billion transaction. I think it's dollars, yeah, it makes more sense with dollars. Okay. And these are actually like the real numbers. Okay, thanks, man. I think it works still. No, okay, I'll do something. So those were the keys. You as a citizen, you can, it's pretty much like Ethereum. Like you can have multiple keys. You don't necessarily have to do just one for your name. But in unique numbers, it's still very intense. So like more than 100 million people are using. And more importantly, more than 10 million entities are using it as well. So this is also getting some good traction on the institutional side. And yeah, this has completely onboarded 33 million people who didn't even use banking on their phone, who didn't even use technology to transact. They're used to the, going to, in Brazil we have something like, it's kind of a lottery, and you have to go there to do big transactions and stuff, and it's just a pain in the ass. It's a bad UX. So this is already like a lot of good work that this revolution in the banking system did. And yeah, So in 2 years, they grew from less than 100 million to more than that. Okay. So even though PIX is just a small part of the Real Digital, the digital real plan, they're also picking up and implementing new features. So having more ways to handle files and receipts, having ways to schedule automatic PIX as natively. So pretty much PIX is also something that the banks have to integrate, right? So it's a protocol, all the banks build on top of it. And this is pretty much like the native part of the protocol they're improving. Another thing that's pretty interesting about Brazil is called Open Finance, which is this common platform that all banks can share data from their customers, of course following laws and standards. But pretty much like if I have one bank that I used for 10 years, they know all my credit info, they know if I pay my bills or not, they know how much money I hold. And let's say I just created a new account in another bank, and I want to make a loan there, they have access to that data if I allow so. So if I integrate the banks, it's basically this clean sheet that every bank can kind of see all your data regarding what, like the features that you're going to leverage inside their app. So that's pretty cool as well. Yeah, Pix is also doing like international payments, which this is something that I think is going to take a while because, well, I'm not sure how they're going to do that. And yeah, this is Open Finance, which I just explained to you. And yeah, it's basically a set of APIs as well. So this is also pretty important to do with basically the developer ecosystem inside the banks, getting them used to build on top of this protocol base layer that kind of functions similar to what Ethereum or the other blockchains do, right? And yeah, in terms of data, we have more than 800 institutions that are interconnected, so you can share data across all of them, and this really helps credit and any form of more advanced financial products and features that are going to leverage. And more than 25 billion API calls, which is actually not that much, but still expressive. And yeah, this pretty much made Brazil become a global reference in the banking space and in the digital banking space more specifically. So these are just some headlines across a few other PR agencies. And this is for you guys that are not Brazilians to just check out a few UIs that leverage that. So this is pretty much Brazil's biggest digital bank, similar to N26 here in the Europe. And this is Mercado Pago, which is basically Argentina's version of PEX, Argentina's biggest bank as well, and kind of our Amazon as well. And yeah, they're all interconnected in terms of I can transact instantly back and forth, and they can have my data if I want to borrow money there, and I don't know, and I want to finance a car here or this kind of stuff. So this is pretty much the central bank's big idea towards digital high and the future of banking system. Voila, everyone kind of wants to do that, right? Like a super app that you can have access to every kind of financial product and, well, management that you would want in the banking space and in the payment space directly on one app. So this is something that's a bit of my take on it, and I don't think it's going to really have that much traction. And we see other banks in Brazil already trying to do that, right? It is one app that you can do 100% of your needs, and still, it's something that worked a lot in a few very specific cases like China, but yeah. The way that digital high is going to be structured as well is pretty, I don't think it has slides here, so I'll just explain with my hands, but pretty much like you guys are all kind of familiar with Ethereum, right? So ERC20s, tokens, this kind of stuff. So pretty much you can mint tokens and you can have an access to these tokens that you can create more tokens, you can burn them. Like basically the programmer is the one that's in charge of who is in charge of those roles and how these roles work alongside the token dynamics. So it's gonna be like, it's a country, it's like a government token, so it can't be super trustless, right? If there's some big fraud, if there's a big glitch in the system, they need to have the ability to roll back, to verify things, and to maybe even burn tokens from an attacker, this kind of thing. So the way that is structured, the central bank is the one that's minting the actual digital reais. So the CBDC is 100%, 120% controlled by the central bank, and it's running on a hyperledger. So it's a permission network. Even if there's some catastrophic happening, they can roll back. And it's only the central bank that's in charge of those tokens, period. But very similar to the wholesale model across modern currencies like the dollar, like the real, for instance, they can allocate based on the risk assessment and supply and demand from the monetary side of each bank. They can allocate those banks to mint reais, kind of like the debt-based dollar, essentially. So banks can also create dollars out of nothing. This, not nothing, but out of data, right? Trustable data. And this is very similar to what's going to happen in Brazil, but using the blockchain. So pretty much, the central bank digital currency, the actual real digital, is 100% in the banking system, but all these other banks, they are going to be, they're going to have a form of asset called tokenized real. So it's basically a wrapped Ethereum form of the real digital, which is just a synthetic token. And each bank will have their specific one. So now we can finally circle back and come back here. That's why the central bank is pushing for a super app as well. So pretty much, in terms from the monetary and the digital token aspect of it, each bank will have their own tokenized token, but when you trade back and forth those tokens, the actual real digital that is controlled by the central bank is going to be settled across these banks themselves. It's very, very similar to what happens nowadays on debt-based emissions of monetary value. And yeah, that's why the central bank is really pushing for a super app. So the banks are going to become protocols. That's pretty much it. So like we have in the Ethereum space, we have Aave, we have MakerDAO, we have Euro Finance, any kind of these DeFi products, the banks are going to become that. And how they are choosing to do that is pretty much, so I'm a bank that is really, my client base is really focused on financing cars or mortgages for houses, whatever. The banks are literally creating blockchain protocols that's all on chain and tokenizing the whole process of doing that specific things they're good at. Because nowadays banks do everything, every bank. There's no bank that says, oh no, I only do mortgages. No, every single bank does everything. So this is also actually quite interesting because the banks themselves are also positioning themselves to be specialists on where their specific segment of the market are and where their user base is. So that's quite interesting, and that is the rhetoric behind creating a super app of the central bank. But this is not the only thing that's going to be around. Nubank has 100 million users. They're not going to delete their app from the App Store from one day to the other. What's going to be? So the super app is very likely going to be where you do the mundane stuff, similar to, well, StakeDAO or these kind of front-end aggregators of multiple protocols, something that we're seeing on DeFi right now. Themselves, they're going to be where the new stuff is pushed out, and also the experimental stuff, the beta stuff. And all within this kind of segregated ecosystems and blockchains that they have actually. Like each bank has their own kind of private blockchain network that they can play around with. And yeah, this is pretty much, I think there are a lot of slides here. I'll just do a little hack. Yeah, it's okay, man. So, yeah, this is kind of the final stage. So, here's like the services that you're thinking about providing in the super app. So credit, payments, investment, insurance, providence, and exchange. And also bringing new things that are part of the roadmap of the digital real that aren't really present in any one app, which is data aggregation, actually starting the settlement of payments and recurrency, so automating all the monthly bills you might have, doing something more like Superfluid or Savior does as well, so streaming payments. This is one thing that's pretty cool about DeFi, for instance. Devs like to be paid each block or something, and we're probably going to see salaries happening the same way, and taxation is happening the same way, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? It's not like it's all good, but yeah, it's all being very much modernized. And yeah, so even, it's not only for actual people, enterprises and the financial markets will happen here in the super app as well. Not necessarily in the super app front end itself, but using its infrastructure. So our Dow Jones, for instance, our stock market will also be running on top of the super app. Oh, now it's going, okay, I like it. So this is another cool thing that Brazilian government is introducing, which is data monetization. This is built on top of open finance, which means like right now, the banks are monetizing your data hard, right? Especially among themselves, and you don't earn anything with that. And here we have the actual central bank saying, oh no, you as a user, you can actually get payments due to your data. And this is only possible because, well, basically the bank here is going to be like the middleman between any partner, might it be like other banks or other services provider. And basically through the tokenization of your user data, you can assure that you're also getting a cut out of it, which is, I'm not sure about how exactly they're going to implement that and where exactly it is on the timeline, but yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting idea, and kudos for the government to thinking about that. Now actually getting into the CBDCs itself. So yeah, I think it's just more, yeah, this is just more context, but just to get you guys a bit of a preview on how they think the stack is distributed. So we have the blockchain just kind of down here. So you can see, like here are the aggregators, here's the blockchain. The users are definitely not in between, they're definitely not here. So this is something that a lot of people in the space talk about. The end game of blockchain is when users don't even realize they're using the blockchain, right? So this is pretty much aligned with what the Brazilian government is doing. And yeah, it's very similar to like a DeFi stack and those DeFi Lego blocks as well. So here we have the blockchain itself, which in most cases are going to be Hyperledger-based deployments that are specific for the banks. Here we have the contracts, well, the contract-based tokens and protocols and logic that's within these blockchains, tied by the actual native protocol gas token. And here we have the service providers, so people who are running exchanges, OTCs, loan desks, lending desks, derivatives, people who are actually like doing funds and asset management. And only on top of this that we're gonna start seeing some front end. So here the application layer is where we would see like a bank app here, a lending kind of app here, a Robinhood style trading app here. So this is, up until this point, this is just code. So you're not really interacting with anything of this directly, which is very, very different from what's happening across the whole world, right? Because, well, usually when I need the exchange service, I need to go directly to the exchange, like currency exchange, like Forex exchange service. I need to go directly to them. If I need to grant access to a fund manager, I need to talk to them directly. But now, when you make it all digital, this is not necessary anymore, and you can do it all through an application. And most of that is going to be aggregated to these kind of retail-focused UX and UI agents. So this is where, for instance, the Brazilian super app of the banking system, the central bank, is going to be at. But we're probably going to see like this mega, giga Robinhood style app here as well, and also the niche ones. And yeah, aggregators are probably like the future of banking. And yeah, this is just some context that he put in as well. So, not so much news here. Okay, so here's also another thing that kind of illustrates the flow of payments and how settlement's gonna work. So pretty much, this is retail focused, this is like entity focused, and this is actually interacting between the banks and the central bank. So all these, like this part of it, so anything that a company or a user will interact is going to be instantly settled on the blockchain and proven and transparent. So you have the hash of everything that's happening there. If I have a tokenized form of real and I send my friend who is in another bank this form of real, it's all going to be automatically kind of converted back and forth and hashed out, so I can prove him that I sent him, and it's all instant. But similar to what's happening here in the traditional banking system, the settlement itself, the liquidation, and how money flows is not necessarily instant, even though it's way faster than now. Because now, pretty much every country needs to rebalance their sheets at the end of the day. And this itself is also a finance instrument. So a financial instrument, like you can trade on that. You can kind of bet that one bank is going to be spinning out more money and the other is kind of lacking, and you can kind of fill in the spread and make money with that and yada yada. So this is pretty much like making more democratic for people to take part on the settlement of those banks and those entities. We're not necessarily just banks. It's another thing that is kind of a caveat between the Brazilian system. And yeah, I think now it's just a lot of things like this. So this is just the bank saying Hyperledger Besu, and this is very, very recent actually. It was only this year that the central bank actually said, oh, this is the stack that we're using, this is how we're thinking about structuring all this. So this is quite fresh, like less than 6 months old. And the rollout period itself is not going to be instant as well. It's going to probably take a couple of years too. Right now, only a few companies and conglomerates of companies, they can actually play around with what's deployed on the testnet. But in a couple of years, it's all going to be open as well. So we, mere humans, will be able to play around with how digital. And yeah, so this is the timeline that we're saying. So they said that December we're actually going to have something, but no, it's just a pilot. So the pilot was rolled out, I don't know, like 3 months ago, and the banks are just playing around. So don't really hold the Brazilian government to these dates. It's already kind of delayed, but still quite fast. And this is just like a few of the benefits that the central bank brought up. So this can really help in terms of financial inclusion and automizing and kind of dispersonalizing the onboarding process of people to the banking system. There's way less overhead costs on any intermediary service, which is really good. There's more competition with less barriers of entry. There's better risk management with more data. You can monetize your data, which is very novel. Even in the blockchain space itself, like very few projects actually work in terms of you monetizing your data. And yeah, just tokenizing everything in terms of financial instruments and counterparty contracts as well. Not smart contracts, I'm talking about counterparty. So I can enforce, so inheritance, for instance, is something that you can programmatically pass on. Again, something not so good, like taxation. You can also be completely automatized and enforced through that. And even just counterparty contracts. So if I say, yo, I'm gonna pay you only when these requirements are met, and that's it, you can enforce that on-chain through any of these networks that there are gonna be dozens, even hundreds in Brazil. Wow, this is a very ugly slide. So yeah, this is pretty much like the pillars of Real Digital itself. So Open Finance, the data platform I told you, Pix, the instant transaction kind of blockchain I told you guys, the actual blockchain stack, and any form of international integrations. Spoiler alert, of course, it's gonna start in Latin America, probably with Argentina. We're gonna see like the first international connections. And yeah, I do not expect this to happen with the actual rest of America, like US and Canada for obvious regulatory reasons, but this is something that after we start integrating Latin America, we're gonna be very similar to Europe, right? So we're gonna be this kind of free trade zone, but kind of a bit more digital. So yeah, I think we can definitely see some integrations because a few countries are also looking to this here, right? I think Norway is the largest European country in terms of digital banking system. But yeah, little by little, you guys are gonna see this popping around across the continent here as well. So yeah, these are just the faces, we already went through that. Well, this is just like an ad they're trying to sell you at, but again, just like a Figma. And yeah, this is the end of Otavio's presentation. But mine, I'll just do a little rant. As someone that's crypto native, and now I see my ecosystem being taken over by the people we judge to destroy, right? We swore to destroy them. They're kind of using our technology against us. But the thing is, like, this is all about modernizing and making it all digital, right? When you have the actual banking space that's already digital, it's also way simpler to get more people into our own ecosystem, right? To bridge them over to Ethereum itself, to Solana, or to whatever other chain you're doing, and to whatever other protocols they're doing. Because I've talked to a lot of banks, and bro, they are copying us, like straight up. They're not recreating Uniswap. They're not recreating MakerDAO. They're just copying it even in a more brute way. Even like they're not refining or optimizing too much stuff. So there's a big overlap of what these institutional people and the space of banks and governments are doing and what we have been doing for more than a decade, right? And this period that's overlapping is quite important for us to exchange information back and forth because we're still going to be around. And a lot of the people that, well, if they don't like the fee that the central bank or their banks are charging, and they can see that on chain. They can see that on chain if they changed as well. If they're pissed about it, they can just migrate over to our kind of network as well. And in terms of taxation and privacy and all that, this is a whole other conversation across the Ethereum and whatever other ecosystems like Monero, like Aztec, whatever. But yeah, DeFi is not dead. They're copying DeFi into TradFi, and DeFi is still evolving a lot. We're still seeing like intent-based trading. Uniswap V3 came out. A lot of new like V4 is coming out as well. So, pretty cool. We're still working in our own ecosystem, and it's evolving. And the banks are behind, and they are going to be behind for a lot of time. So. We're just going to copy DeFi, and a lot of it will not work in their stack. So crypto is still relevant, it's still important. Right now, the banks are kind of pretending that they like us, so we can teach them. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing for us as, you know, as business professionals. Not so much as crypto anarchists, but I mean, I don't see anyone wearing a mask here, so I think, okay, now he is. So yeah, don't give the banks your data, bro. Yeah. But yeah, this is what I kind of prepared. I think it was I hope it was a good overview, and if anyone wants to challenge me or have any questions, just reach out afterwards. And yeah, thank you. You can download this PDF by just googling Real Digital Apresentação, which is presentation in Portuguese, and it is literally the first link. And my Telegram is right here, so feel free to reach out. Thank you guys and girls.
Questions?
So what about self-custody? Will people be able to self-custody, or do they always need to have some sort of bank in the middle?
Self-custody of like your private keys and your assets is still going to be third party. So if you're using the bank tokenized real, it's going to be on their chain and they're doing custody. And even in terms of like private key management, this is something that has not been discussed thoroughly, not announced by them, but I believe you will indeed have some form of self-custody you can do inside their blockchain. But it's a permission blockchain, so.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. To be honest, I'm really impressed by, I know in China they have a super app, you know, with WeChat where they can pay for everything and all the services included. Didn't know that in Brazil it was that much advanced, and to be honest, it's really impressive because it's really taking the same structure that we know in crypto with the lowest level, the blockchain, and then the app and this composability. My question is, do you think there will be like a real composability with crypto? Like recently, Chainlink released CCIP, basically, and they were talking about all this private chain that banking system have, and they want to be able to exchange data between our world, like the crypto world, and also all this private initiative and maybe something like that. Which level of interoperability and composability do you think there will be in the future?
That's an awesome question. Appreciate it. Right now, basically the Brazilian central bank is becoming a third actor. So it's not just kind of like the DeFi, the banks. There's also the central bank here. And the banks are kind of in the middle. So they want to have a good integration with the central bank, but they can't be 100% integrated with them because they lose their edge. So they also want to a bit of the other side. And I can tell you, like Chainlink has one of the best presences across the country from the community side. I'm not so sure about the business side, but I know they're in touch. And a lot of the banks are also in touch with layer ones, more specifically. Like I can't say because of NDAs, but I know they are. And so they are creating their financial instructions in a way that is not permission chain native. So they are creating, for instance, I can't give you a real example, otherwise I'm doxing the bank. But like, let's say that I do insurance, life insurance for old people, right? That's it. I can do that on my tokenized Hal chain, but the banks are also doing that on, I don't know, any chain, Arbitrum, for instance. They're also studying doing that because they don't want to be tied to only one Brazilian money and the Brazilian system. So they want to be able to receive monies from anywhere else, from these crypto native people, and most of all, they want the users and the feedback from that. So they are indeed thinking about how to do things in a composable way.
Super interesting, thanks.
No worries. That's it. Thank you everyone. Have a good event.